All right. Hi, my name is Jill Edwards. I'm going over case study chapter. I don't want that to pop up. Case study chapter 10. In this case study, I'm responding to a teacher who says that many kids in the classroom are obese because their parents are lazy, that children do not have depression or anxiety, and that autism is not real. It is just bad parenting showing up through behavior. My first reaction is that this teacher may be frustrated, but the comments are not appropriate or supported by child development research. A teacher is allowed to notice that children come into the classroom with different physical, emotional, and developmental needs. That part is true. Children in middle childhood can struggle with obesity, anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, and other developmental or mental health concerns. But the teacher's explanation of those issues is where the problem lies. So, first, I would talk about obesity. In the lecture notes, obesity is defined as children being at least 20% over the average weight for their age, height, and sex. The lecture notes also explain that the cause of obesity includes both biological and environmental factors. That means that it is not fair or accurate to say that obesity only happens because parents are lazy or do not care. The professor specifically mentions that heredity can play a role because obesity is higher in identical twins than fraternal twins of obese parents, suggesting a genetic component. And here we go. Hopefully you can see this. This is the lecture notes here, and we talk about the causes, the consequences, obviously. So, the textbook also supports the idea in chapter 10. The textbook explains that childhood obesity is connected to many factors, including diet, activity level, processed foods, portion sizes, school lunches, physical education, family habits, and broader environmental issues. It also says that being overweight in childhood is associated with health concerns like high blood pressure, insulin resistance, inflammation, depression, and lower academic achievement. So the teacher is correct that obesity is a concern in middle childhood, but they are incorrect to blame it only on parents being lazy. And that is right here on page 270 in the textbook. And I have that highlighted. Where'd it go? Well, I did have it highlighted. But anyway, it is right here. And it talks about how, it is a concern, but there's a lot that goes into it. Okay, and so another important part of this discussion is the impact of shame. The professor's lecture notes say that consequences of obesity can include decreased motor development, increased disease, increased learning and attention problems, increased teasing, decreased self-esteem, all of that stuff. So if a teacher already views obese children as the product of lazy parenting, that teacher might treat those children with less empathy. And that can make teasing, shame, and self-esteem problems worse. The teacher also says that children don't have depression or anxiety, and that this is just them copying what their parents say. That's incorrect. The textbook clearly says that children can experience mental health disorders, including anxiety, depression, and stress, all that stuff. So it explains anxiety in children might show up as worry or fear, but also as irritability, anger, trouble sleeping, fatigue, headaches, or stomach aches. And it might make them worry more, but parents might miss those symptoms. And so that is on page 284. 284 of the textbook. And it talks about it here and how it looks different than adults. Like it might seem like they're just grouchy or whatever, but it does cause, adults to miss some of the symptoms. You just don't think about kids being depressed. So for depression, the textbook explains that children might not always look like depressed adults. They might complain of feeling sick, refuse to go to school, cling to parents or caregivers, feel unloved, feel hopeless about the future. Older children might be negative, grouchy, irritable, and have trouble concentrating or feeling misunderstood. So no, children are not just copying and pasting adult words. Children can have real internal experiences. And I can speak from my own personal experience. Both my children struggle with PTSD and depression because their father committed suicide last year, and my youngest is the one who found him. And so I can guarantee you, just from myself perspective, these are all things. So it does feel a little bit more irritating to me, but that's not the point. This is so the teacher statement about autism is also like very concerning. The teacher says autism is not a thing and it's just bad parenting. That's not supported by the textbook at all. Chapter 10 explains that autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder that affects communication and behavior. The textbook says that people with this can also have difficulty with communication, interaction, restricted interests, repetitive behaviors, and symptoms that affect functioning in school, work, or other areas of life. So that is on the following section. We can come down here. There, we talk about it on page 285 through this section. So the biggest assumption that this teacher is making is that children's struggles are caused by bad parenting or lazy parents. And that's a very harmful assumption. It ignores biology, poverty, food access, genetics, disability, trauma, school environments, and the fact that children develop physically, emotionally, and socially and cognitively all at the same time. So they're going through a lot. The textbook talks about children's bodies are not separate from the social and emotional cognitive changes. So a richer way to discuss this would be to ask, what support does this child need? Is the child being teased? Does the child have access to healthy food? Are there safe places to play? Is the child sleeping? Does the family have resources? Do we need an IEP? Do we need to make some sort of accommodations? So the professor's lecture notes say that treatment for childhood obesity is most effective when it's family-based. And I guess I'm kind of jumping around, but this all ties together. So what should have the teacher said? Well, she couldn't say anything nice. She should not have said anything at all, but a better response would have been something like, I've noticed that some students are coming into the classroom with different physical, emotional, and developmental needs. Some children may struggle with weight, anxiety, depression, autism, or attention issues. These concerns have many causes, including biological, familial, school, and environmental factors. My job as a teacher is not to shame families or diagnose children, but to notice concerns, communicate respectfully, and help connect children with support when needed. So it would have been way more professional. It would have been more consistent with child development research. And in conclusion, the teacher is correct that children in middle childhood can have real issues that affect the classroom, but the teacher is incorrect about the causes of all of these things. So my name is Jill Edwards. This was my case study for chapter 10. Thank you so much. Let's see.